Welcome to the unSeminary podcast. Are you looking for practical ministry help to drive your ministry further, faster? Have a sinking feeling that your ministry training didn't prepare you for the real world? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others in pursuit of stuff that we wish they had taught in seminary. Buckle up and let's get started with this week's unSeminary podcast.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to the unSeminary podcast. My name's Rich, the host around these parts. So glad that you've decided to tune in today and to spend some time with us. We know you've got a lot going on at your church, and we're just honored that you would take some time out today, pop us in your earbuds, maybe while you're out running or, cutting the grass or something like that. We're just honored that you would be with us today. Today, I've been looking forward to this interview for a while. We've got Art Rayner with us. He's currently the VP of Institutional Advancement at the Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. That is a very fancy title. Before that, he was administrative pastor with Jimmy Scroggins down just a little farther south. And so we're just so glad to have you on the show today, Art.
Hey, Rich, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm so glad to have you here. One of the things I love about you, Art, you've wrote some great books. The thing I love about it is you're, which I think our listeners will love, is just super practical, applicable stuff that you can pick up and say, hey, let's make a difference. And we're going to talk a little bit today about your most recent book called The Money Challenge, which it's obvious in the title what it's about, which is wonderful.
It's about the money challenge. That's right.
Nice. Before we get to there, why don't you tell us a little bit about your current role? Tell us about what's going on at Southeastern these days.
Man, God is doing great things here. So, as you mentioned, my role here is Vice President for Institutional Advancement. That covers a number of different areas here at the school, from financial development, alumni relations, enrollment. So, getting the students here and then hopefully keeping them here through graduation. We don't want them just to show up on campus. We actually want them to walk away with a diploma. Our certificate services is a part of it. Our marketing and communications department is a part of it. So fortunately, I have a great team that I get to work with. So I'm not doing all of those things by myself.
Right. That's great. That's cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about this book. So obviously, the money challenge, it's a big issue for for people who are attending churches, for church leaders. What was it that motivated you to write this book from your perspective, both as a previous someone who's working in a local church, but then also serving a lot of leaders? What was it that kind of got you to say, I think we need to craft a book on this?
Well, so my passion for personal finances has been around for a long time. In fact, when I graduated from college, I graduated with a bachelor's in finance. I immediately went into the banking world. My initial goal out of college was to be a CFP, or a certified financial planner. And so I set myself on that trajectory. I got my MBA at the University of Kentucky. Go Cats. And I thought that was what God had for me, because I loved it. And I was in the banking world for about 4 years. I won't go into all the details, but through a variety of ways that God kind of revealed in my heart that that's just not what He had in store for me. I eventually went on staff full time with Family Church down in West Palm Beach. As you mentioned, the pastor was Jimmy Scroggins, and was there to help him and help that church through a very difficult financial time. Even while I was there, though, I worked with individuals who were struggling in their finances. I would work with the premarital counseling groups to help them understand how they need to be unified in their finances. And so that my love and passion for personal finance has been there for a while. And I have story after story after story of people who are just they fit the statistics that we hear. Right now in the U.S., we're actually at all-time highs as it relates to consumer debt. So if you have credit card debt, it's likely that you have around $16,000 in credit card debt, and that is an absolute. It can create havoc in your life, can create havoc in your marriages, and so those in the church are not immune to that reality. There's a number of them that are part of those statistics, and so my passion is to see people get financially healthy, but I want to be very clear, not for the sake of financial health, because when we are financially unhealthy, we're really missing out on God's design for us and for our money. See, God designed us not to be hoarders, not to hold everything together or to hold on to it with tight fists, but to be conduits through which his generosity flows. And so generosity is the foundation upon which financial health is to be built. So financial health, when I talk about it, I look at it more as a means to a much greater end.
Right. Very cool. One of the things, and I've said, I've kind of embarrassingly admitted to other church leaders is, the most consistent kind of change agent in our church over the years, for seeing like predictable, like, okay, God's going to work in that, which is a little bit humbling, has been Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. And it was interesting we've sent, hundreds and hundreds of people through FPU, and the interesting thing about it, and to be honest, I got to be honest, I bought into the idea of, okay, yes, we do this because we want something for people, not from people. We want to help them get their finances sorted out. We don't want to just always harp on like, you should be generous, therefore give to us. But the interesting thing that happened, which is a part of what I love about your book, the interesting thing that happened is as people in their relationships, as they, as a husband and wife, really a lot of times for the first time sat down and say, how does our money work? What does this mean for us? It was amazing to see how God stepped in and did some amazing work in so many relationships over the years through that process. So the thing I love about your book, it's really not just one challenge. It's really a collection of challenges that all kind of add up to one piece of that. Can we pick apart a couple of those? Maybe you could kind of walk us through some of the challenges that people have. Yeah.
So the book was crafted with I'd say John Smith at whatever church USA. I was just thinking when I was writing the book, I was thinking first of all about the number of stories and the number of people that I knew that were struggling with their finances, and I was also thinking how could we craft a book that appealed to the typical person in the church that is not only struggling with their finances, struggling with their generosity, but have absolutely no desire to read a book on money. And so one of the unique pieces of the book is that each chapter starts with a fictional story. We follow a lady, a recent college graduate, who is burdened with student loan, credit card debt throughout the book. So at the beginning of each chapter, we follow her story as she tries to discover God's design for her and her money. And then after we look at her story, we start talking about some of the biblical principles that we find as it relates to our finances and the practical implications for us. And then, of course, as you alluded to, we have our money challenges, which are initially directed toward Annie, but then you learn they're also your money challenges. Now, some of them are financial, and you would expect that. You need to set up your IRA account. You need to test the waters with as it relates to giving to your church. Maybe set up your online giving. But some of them have absolutely nothing to do necessarily with finances, because we know that generosity is not just about money. It's a lifestyle, right? God desires us to be generous, not just with our money, but with everything that we have. So some of the challenges are pretty simple. Let somebody in front of you in line. That's all that you have to do that day. Read this passage of Scripture. Put this Scripture on the mirror on your bathroom mirror so that you can see it every day. So some of them they have to do with money, but some of them absolutely do not. But they all have to do with the generous lifestyle that God has designed us to live.
Yeah, and that's part of what I love about this book. I'm assuming, as I was kind of looking through it, one of the things that struck me is this would be a great tool for churches to give to people. This could be if you had maybe as a gift to first-time donors, or maybe the kind of thing that you're gathering a group of leaders together to talk about a number of different items, and one of the things you're going to talk about is finances, and this could be the kind of thing you could give to them. I'm assuming that's the kind of thing you're thinking about with this book.
Absolutely. Of course, it's great just for an individual to go through it and to read through that. It's also set up really well for small groups or Sunday school groups, whatever your structure may be there at your church. And in fact, you can get a box of 20 books for $100. So
crazy.
That pushes the price point down to $5 a book, and that's very intentional. We want pastors to be able to access the book and to share it with their congregation, because we believe that it can make a difference in the congregation's lives and in hopefully in the church in general. And so they're able to do that, and then of course it's set up also in a way where if you want to do some type of special emphasis, it's a good book to use for those types of emphasis as well.
Nice. Now, the book identifies 4 different generosity killers, is how you kind of describe them. Can we talk through those? What are those that are that detract from people's generosity?
Yeah, the ones that I see consistently are, one, keeping up with the Joneses. So all that means is that you have those around you, and you see you're trying to keep up with their lifestyle, even if your finances aren't necessarily able to. Now, here's what's different for our generation. Now, I say our generation. I'm not necessarily saying the millennials, the Gen X, but just where we are right now, is that we're in this digital age. And so historically, when you say keeping up with the Joneses, that means you're looking over to your neighbor on the left and your neighbor on the right and seeing what cards they have, and you're just trying to keep up with them. Well, that has expanded exponentially.
Absolutely.
The Joneses are now all of your Facebook friends, right? And you're looking at what they're posting, the ideal world that they're posting on their Facebook page, and so now you're trying to keep up with them.
So true.
So that's a tremendous generosity kill. I think that could be one of the reasons why we continue to see debt rise at the rates that we see it. So number 2 is debt. That's a very common generosity killer. You are obligated to pay your bills, right? So if you take out your mortgage, which I know most of us have one, but you're going to have to pay the bank.
Right.
If you take out some credit card debt, you want to purchase furniture that maybe you can't afford right now, well, you're going to have to pay on that for a good time, especially as interest rates are pretty ridiculous on credit cards. So debt hinders you from being able to be more free with your money because you're obligated to pay your bills.
Now, on the debt piece, you had said earlier, so I'm glad to have you on, because I was under the impression that consumer debt had actually gone down post the Great Recession, but you had said no, actually it's actually its high point ever. Are we heading back to this?
I hope not.
Yeah.
But we are at an all-time high. So we did see a little bit of a dip post 2008, but now we're actually past 2008. So yes, consumer debt has gone up. The average household in the United States has around $132,000 in debt. Now, of course, that includes all debts. So you're looking at mortgages, car loans, credit cards. But the credit card piece in general is astounding. Once again, if you have credit card debt, then you average around $16,000. Student loan debt, as we know, is continues to creep up. If you for college graduates in 2017, I believe the average was around $37,000 in student loan debt.
That's amazing. And
that hinders them tremendously as they try to find a job, try to afford housing. So they're faced with many challenges that prior college graduates may weren't as much. So yes, we are at an all-time high as of right now. It's scary.
Yeah, interesting. I remember when I first got into ministry, which was a couple of decades ago, we had there's a couple of churches that I had talked with that they wouldn't bring people onto their staff who still had debt from school. They were like, they wouldn't even hire them, which I'm not even sure that that's a thing anymore. Like, I think that, it would be difficult for a lot of, to find people because so many people carry around that debt with them.
That's right. Well, if you're wanting to go into missions, you cannot have, for most missions organizations, you cannot have debt.
Right.
For understandable reasons, you're not going to be able to pay it off.
Right.
So it's not only is it a generosity killer, but it can cause the calling on your life, at least you have to put it on pause for a while until you pay off those loans and those debts.
Absolutely. Okay, so keeping up with the Joneses, debt, and there were what were the two other generosity killers?
Right. So disorganization.
Okay.
And this gets into the area that I know everybody hates to talk about, but budgets. You need a budget. You need a plan.
Right.
You need to know where you are in your finances. So you need to know your financial reality, and you need to have a plan on how to get to where you want to go. So many people, when you ask them, well, how does your budget look? How do your expenditures look? How do you make plans on what to buy and what not to buy? Often they say, I don't know. We just guess. That's a recipe for disaster right there. So disorganization is a generosity killer because unfortunately what happens as it relates to generosity, and I think this is one of the biggest misunderstandings that we have as it relates to God's design for our money, is that generosity is something that you do after all the bills are paid, right? It's a leftover.
Yeah.
Of course, when we look at Scripture, we see that it's a priority. When we look at God and how He gives to us, how He gave to us, we see that it is a priority when He's giving His first and His best, His one and only Son. So disorganization causes, or is a factor in generosity being a leftover. And then finally, a family or a marriage that is not unified in their finances. So a financially separate marriage. It's a generosity killer.
Why don't we talk about that? Yeah. Talk that through. I think particularly for young leaders who are listening in, they might have just fallen into a scenario where like them and their wife maybe are just, hey, you take care of these things, I'll take care of the mortgage, and then it's that kind of thing you're saying ultimately reduces generosity.
Well, there's two things that can happen. One, because you're not on the same page, because you're not pursuing the same goals, then the impact is diminished. Right. So you're spending over here, your wife is spending over here. You may want to give over here, she may want to give over there, or maybe not at all. You're not on the same page, and so your impact is greatly diminished. So you have to get on the same page. Probably, maybe more importantly, is as we look at statistics, we see over and over and over again that financial stress in a marriage is detrimental to marriages. It's frequently one of the top reasons why divorced couples, at least the way as far as they're reporting, why they get divorced, and we can see why. When you have a financially separate marriage, when it's my money and your money, not our money, it creates a divide. Yep. I have a story about just that, and I'll be quick with this story. But as I was when I was in the banking world, I was working with a couple of my clients. They were married. They were wanting to take out a mortgage, and I had to tell them that mortgage would not be possible because of the debt that was showing up on their credit report. Unfortunately, it's not an uncommon conversation that happens in banks. But what I did was I started walking them through the debts that I saw on the credit report. Now, when you pull a credit report for a mortgage, and both are on that report, it's what's called a joint credit report. So it puts both debts together. And so I'm just going down them one by one. Here's this credit card. Here's this loan, here's this credit card, here's this credit card. I hit a certain credit card and let them know the balance that was showing up. The wife immediately said, well, that's not ours.
Oh, no.
And so my mind went to fraud.
Right.
Something's wrong here. Right. We need to help them, or I need to help them figure out how to get this off their credit report. So I started walking them through just the basic steps on how to do that. Well, as I was doing that, and both of them were sitting across the table from me, I could watch the husband, and he started turning really red.
Oh, no.
And even sweating a little bit. And so as I was about halfway through describing the steps that they needed to take to get it off the credit report, he said, don't worry about it. Of course, the wife...
Oh, no.
And she was not looking at him. I could see something that she could not see.
Right.
She was looking at me. She goes, no, we need to get this taken care of. And he once again interrupted, said, absolutely not. Just don't worry about it, honey. Let's keep going. Well, at that point, she turned to him and could see what I had been seeing all along, but that there was something really wrong here. Yeah. And of course, she turned, looked at me. She goes, "Art, I'm really sorry about this, but we need to leave." Right. She got up, walked out of the room. Wow. Husband, with his head down, got up and followed. Right. Now, I have no idea what happened there.
Right.
I have no idea how their marriage went after that. I do know that their marriage was probably better when they walked into to my office than when they walked out.
Right.
A financially separate marriage, it hurts your generosity. Yep. It can also devastate your marriage because it can actually lead you to hiding financial secrets from your spouse.
Well, and the bigger issue there ultimately becomes a pattern of hiding, right? That that if you're willing to hide that, what does it mean in other areas of your life? And and unfortunately, I wish I didn't see where that was going. We've heard those stories, right? And that ultimately, it leads to, it's just super destructive to marriages for sure. Well, this has been great. Now, before we move on, I want you to tell me a little bit about where people can get the book. If they want to, pick up copies of it, how can they learn more about this?
Well, of course, you can go to Amazon.com, so it's available there. Mm-hmm. If you want to get the box of 20 for $100, which for pastors, that's what I recommend. It's a very I don't want to say cheap, but a very easy way to get those books out to your congregation. Mm-hmm. You will need to go to Lifeway.com. Mm-hmm. That is not available on Amazon. So you need to go to Lifeway.com and purchase the box there. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
So either of those are good options.
That's fantastic. And I would encourage church leaders that are listening in to to drop by, to take a look. One of the beautiful things about Amazon is you can actually read a bunch of the book, right from at the front end. So you don't even have to spend a penny. You can get a chance to, get a sense of where things are at. You can get a sense of the pacing and the style, that sort of thing, which is helpful. So, I would encourage you to do that. I think it's a great resource, a great potential resource for your church as you're, looking to help people walk through the financial issues, which are huge. We all know that. Art, anything else you want to say before we jump into the lightning round?
No. That's it. Thank you for letting me walk your listeners through the money challenge. I appreciate it.
This is the unSeminary podcast. Stuff you wish they taught in seminary.
Today we have Art Rayner with us. He's an author and just a great leader, and I'm just super excited to have him on today. Why don't we jump into the lightning round? This is the part of the episode where we ask similar questions of everybody that's on the show. Art, what's an online resource that you're using these days that's helping you out?
Mint.com is one of my favorite budgeting tools that's out there. Now, you have to be willing to let the website have all of your financial data. So I know some people are scared about that. I'm just one of those that's not terrified by that thought. But Mint.com is an amazing budgeting tool and resource that's out there. I also, as far as an app goes on my phone, I use an app called Clear. I'm a checklist person. Yes. And Clear is one of the most simple, user-friendly apps that I found. I personally don't need anything complex because I'm doing it every single day. Yep. So I use Clear a lot as well.
Nice. What's a book you've read, which this is going to mean a lot from a guy who's a publisher of books. So what's a book that you've read in the last, 6 months, maybe to a year, that have shaped your thinking in ministry?
Oh, man. A great, I don't think it was meant to be a leadership book. But it ends up being a great leadership book is The Boys in the Boat. Okay. And that's by a guy named Daniel Brown. It's a story about a Washington State rowing team and how they eventually won the gold in the Berlin Olympics.
That's cool.
And so it's a great Depression era story, and man, it is written so well. You can't not get trapped in the story that's being told. And of course, it's a true story. And then there's a number of different leadership principles and even followership principles that are found within the book. So highly recommend that. It's a little bit of a long read, but I promise you, it's worth it. And then also the Elements of Investing is a really great book. It's a very simple book for those who are wondering, what do I do with my retirement? What should I invest in? I recommend that book if you have those types of questions.
Very cool. What's sort of the ministry you're looking to that inspires you?
Oh man, so I mentioned that I was on staff at Family Church down in West Palm Beach. I was on staff there for about 5 years, and I continue to be amazed at what they're doing down there. So the church not only continues to grow, they continue to add new campuses. But if you're familiar with what's called the 3 circles, it's a way to share your faith. That was birthed out of a family church, and that church has become so intentional on sharing the gospel with those around them, and they continue to, I guess you could use the term, experience success and see God use those conversations to impact that area, which is an incredibly lost area in our nation. I believe, I hope I'm quoting this statistic right, but I believe 97% of the population in the county that they're located in are completely unchurched. And so it's a very lost area that they're impacting, and so I love watching them.
Nice.
And love hearing the stories coming out of that area.
Very cool. If you could get 15 minutes with any leader alive, who would that be with and why?
I'm fascinated by Elon Musk. And in part just because he always seems to be a step ahead of everybody. Yeah. And his interviews fascinate me. He also seems to be unafraid to disrupt pretty stagnant areas of industry. So you look at the automobile industry. You may have seen it on Facebook. At least I get the ads where they're now doing solar tiles for your roofing. I mean, who thought that you could be innovative with roofing tiles?
Roofing tiles. Yeah, it's crazy.
And then, of course, as we look at IA, and he's on the leading edge of that, I would love to just have a conversation with him and to experience his thought process for a little while.
Yeah, the thing I love about Elon Musk is he seems to he gets to the nub of like the fundamental principle of what's wrong with something. Like even those tiles you talked about, like I don't know whether it's true or not, but the way they're selling them is like it's less than a normal roof. So for the cost of less than doing normal tiles, you could put solar tiles on your roof, and it's like I gotta say that drew me. I'm like, what? Like maybe I should just do that. It's crazy. It's amazing. So I'm sure doing everything you're doing, it takes a lot out of you. It's a lot of energy. But when you just want to kick back, relax, have some fun, what do you do for fun?
And I have a great family. So I have 3 boys, 6. 3 and 10 months now. Nice. are their ages, and we have a blast together. Of course, that means that our house is in total chaos most of the time, because they are very active boys. I have a great wife, Sarah, that I love hanging out with as well. So if I have and when I have free time, it is almost always spent with them.
Nice. Well, Art, I really appreciate you being, on the show today, taking time out of your schedule to be with us. If people want to get in touch with you or with the school or learn more about the book, what are the kind of various places they can get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, my Twitter handle is at Art Rayner. So I do respond. So if you send me a direct message, then most of the time, as long as it's a legit direct message, then I will respond. Yeah. You can also reach me here at the seminary. The seminary's website is SEBTS.edu. So Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. You can reach me here as well.
Nice. Appreciate being on the show today, Art.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's unSeminary podcast. Don't be shy. We'd love to connect. Check out unSeminary Inbox. You can sign up at unSeminary.com, and we'll send you helpful training resources every week. Plus, you'll gain immediate access to our exclusive members area with tons of resources you can use. Connect with Rich on Twitter at Rich Birch or through email, rich@unseminary.com. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode at unseminary.com. It includes links to what we talked about today and more. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Did you enjoy today's episode? Drop by iTunes and leave a review. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's unSeminary podcast. Join us next week when we'll learn more stuff we wish they taught in seminary.